Hey, everybody, welcome to Retired Life in Mexico, No Bulls, inaugural stream. Let's discuss Mexico. How's everybody doing? I see that we have a couple of people already in the room, and I thought what I would do today is that I would go ahead and start this inaugural show with a little bit about myself. I'm going to start telling everybody a little bit about myself. I know I've been broadcasting on YouTube for a little bit over a year, but I'm going to do that. And I'm not only going to do that, how's it going, Standing Mannequin? How are you doing? And Jim, how are you doing, Jim? And Lisa, I see you guys from my YouTube channel and also from my Facebook group. But today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, and then we're going to go into a little bit if you want to start asking questions. What I do ask, if the chat gets a little bit too chatty, is if you have a question, just put a Q, capital Q, and a colon, and then your question. And that way I can actually search the comments if it gets passed. So I guess we'll get started. I figured behind me is the Mexican flag. As you know, on September 15th, we're going to be celebrating Mexican Independence Day. I was going to do it on the Mexican Independence Day, but figured I would do it on Sunday because I actually asked, asked on a poll, and everybody said Sunday would be great. And how are you doing, Rick? Thanks for stopping in. So I think, first of all, I think everybody wants to know why I call myself Sir Dragon X. That'd probably be the best place to start. It all goes back to my computer geek days. Back in the 80s, I was in high school, and back then we had some, the computers weren't like they are today, and the internet wasn't exactly like it was today. Oh, I'm sorry, it's on the 16th. And well, it's actually on the 15th, but it's the 16th at midnight. So yeah, you're right, Uno. But we celebrate on the 15th. It starts the celebrations. But I call myself Sir Dragon X because back then we used to get on. It's kind of like a hacker synonym that I've had, and then I took it through my years in gaming, and so I just kept that moniker. So I decided that I would come out as Sir Dragon X on YouTube, even though I didn't. I studied computer science, but I didn't stay in computer science. I went on to a career in federal law enforcement in the United States. So that's basically my background. I decided to move to Mexico. I retired in 2000, at the end of 2017 or 16, and at beginning of 2017 actually. And we weren't really planning to retire in Mexico, but we came to visit San Miguel. Well, we went to visit San Miguel. I'm in Monterrey right now, but we went to visit San Miguel, and lo and behold, we fell in love with San Miguel, and we bought a house that actual vacation, during the vacation. And we first thought of it as a vacation home, and now it has become our permanent residence. We just decided to move. And ever since then, I decided to start a YouTube channel and give a little bit of my knowledge to the people. I've worked extensively during my federal law enforcement career. I worked extensively in Latin America on a diplomatic level with Mexican Immigration and Customs, and also with several immigration and customs departments throughout Latin America. I also did some work in the Middle East. So I thought I would bring a different perspective. So here I am. I tried a live stream early in Facebook live stream early on, and it didn't go too well. So I've been refining my software and everything else. So decided that I'd start coming on here. So I'll tell you what, we're starting to get the questions already. And let me see here. Living life. What are you familiar with in regards to the FMM? Is the FMM going away? That's by living life. The FMM is an actual form. It stands for Forma Migratoria Múltiple. And it actually serves several multiple purposes. Most people know the FMM as your tourist permit. That's what you fill out when you come into Mexico. As far as when you ask for permission to come in, depending on what country you come from, you might have to have a visa. Excuse me, I have to drink water because the radiation treatment from my cancer sometimes dries up my saliva. But basically, when you come in, if you have a visa, then you present your visa and then you fill out an FMM, and that's what gives you the permit. And then the immigration officer fills out the form, the bottom portion of the forms, and gives you how many days you're allowed. Now, there are certain countries, such as the United States, Canada, Europe, certain countries in Europe that don't need a visa. You just come in, you present your passport, and you ask for permission, and you fill out that Forma Migratoria FMM. What's going on right now, and I know there's been a lot of talk on social media that the FMM is being eliminated. It's not being eliminated. The other purposes for FMM is also if you're a resident, when you leave, Mexico uses the FMM for the purpose of tracking you when you leave and you come back. And the reason why they do that is because later on, if you apply for citizenship, there's a requirement that you have to live here a certain amount of time. Now, the FMM is not actually going away. What it is going paperless. Last year, Congress passed an amendment to one of the articles in the immigration law saying that immigration was now able to use technology to expedite entries in the United States. And the reason why they're going electronic, and one of the main reasons why they're going electronic, is because it's a lot more convenient. You don't have to fill out a form, or when you get to the booth, some people fill it out wrong, or you have to fill it out over again. So what's going on right now with the FMM is they have a pilot program at 4 different airports. And this pilot program, when you arrive, all you do is present your passport, and the immigration officer fills out not fills out the FMM, but puts the FMM in a computer. And there's even a portal you can go to that you can actually see your FMM, but they stamp your passport with the number of days. So the FMM really isn't going away. The FMM is just going electronic. So I hope that answers your question, living life. And we have Beaver Lover asking this question. I'm traveling to southern Mexico this winter from Cancun to Acapulco. Okay. What places should I avoid and for what reason? I'll tell you what part of southern, it all depends what kind of part of southern Mexico you want to go to. As far as avoiding areas, most of the places that I would probably avoid is, but they're more in the north or on the eastern seaboard. And basically, you want to stay away from states like Sinaloa and maybe Michoacan. Morelia is a nice place. I'm not going to say stay away from Morelia, but you just want to be careful. One of the things that I advise when we talk about safety in Mexico is, yes, there's dangerous areas, but it's just a matter of researching what areas. One thing that I do know a lot of people disagree, but one of the things that I do say is go to the U.S. Department website. They issue travel advisories. And I would take those travel advisories to heart, but I would take those travel advisories and just practice common sense safety when you're here in Mexico. For example, when you're traveling, travel on the toll roads. I see that you're going from Cancun to Acapulco. I assume you're going to take a flight unless you're going to drive. Now, if you're going to drive, then you're going to have to be careful. And when you're driving, you want to drive on toll roads. You don't want to drive on what they call the libre, the free roads. And it also depends what states you're going to travel through. So it's all about doing your research. And so, like I said, just be careful, practice common sense, and only travel during the day. And I think you should be fine. Southern Mexico is very beautiful. Chiapas, especially in the mountains, but it can get remote. One of the things that I also say about Southern Mexico is just make sure you do your planning as far as on the roads, as some places can get desolate, and make sure you have a full tank of gas if you're going to be driving. But I hope that helps, Beaver Lover. And let's go to the next one. Why you moved to Mexico? Did you research other countries? Actually, Aleida de la Fuente, which happens to be my sister-in-law, asked me this. And actually, we didn't research any other countries, like I said. We came to San Miguel, fell in love with it, and we just kind of moved here. We did it on the fly. My wife happens to be from here, from Monterrey, from Mexico. And we went on a vacation, and we ended up coming home with a house. And the intent was to be a vacation home. And then we decided, why not move to Mexico? But I will say one thing, and that's very important that Aleida brought this up, is that it is important to research other places. I felt comfortable here. We did it on a whim, but we also faced the consequences of doing things on a whim. For example, we're very familiar with northern Mexico, and we moved to central Mexico. So it's a lot different in central Mexico than it is in northern Mexico. So it was a lot of adjusting. And research is key. It's very important. And if you are interested in moving overseas, it is a good idea to research other countries. It just so happened that we got lucky. We moved to a place that we loved, and we haven't looked back. But that's not true for everybody. So it is important that you research whatever other countries too. And let's see what else here. And Standing Mannequin was saying, I've heard that the National Guard is really doing a good job and crime is dropping a lot. I saw on the president's channel. One of the things that I can say is the president has increased security. There has been a big change with the National Guard, or the Guardia Nacional, as they call them here. There's actually been a recent change. There was a change in the Guardia Nacional. The initial change was we used to have what they called the federal police here in Mexico. They actually were in charge of the highways, and the federal police were the ones that basically secured the highways. President AMLO came in and basically merged the military with the federal police. The initial merge was basically taking certain elements out of the military and taking certain elements. A lot of federal police resigned because they didn't like the move. And what they did was they combined the current federal police, and then they took certain people out of the National Guard, and they basically put them into what we know now as Guardia Nacional. Excuse me. And then over some time, and also certain military units were designated Guardia Nacional. This Guardia Nacional was given immigration authority and law enforcement authority. So basically the military was kind of quasi-police military organization. And just recently, the president changed that to the military has taken over the Guardia Nacional. There used to be two command structures, but now there's only one. And the military is actually the one that's running the Guardia Nacional now. They're actually under the military. Now, they still have their police powers, their immigration powers. And lately, if you watch the news, you see a lot of, they've been capturing a lot of drug cartel leaders and those types of things. So they have been increasing the security. One of the things that I've noticed is there's a lot more roadblocks or checkpoints that are being conducted. I did a video about that. You know, how much has it increased the security in Mexico? It's all relative, I guess you might say. Basically, I always say there's no such thing as 100% security. And I do know, Uno said that the president has this attitude of hugs, not, he says abrazos, not balazos. And that is true. But he has taken certain steps to try to increase the security. And it, whether it's working or not, I couldn't tell you because I don't know the actual stats. But I do see a lot more Guardia Nacional on the road. And putting the military in charge puts more people on the street as far as law enforcement authority at the federal level. So hope that answers your question. Immigration facilitator Rick, the spiritual advisor, is asking for anybody's advice on. Actually, I don't know anybody in Guadalajara, but if anybody can chime in and let Rick know on a good facilitator in Guadalajara, that would be greatly appreciated. And Living Life is saying, I'm interested in moving to Aguascalientes. I'll be working on my temporary residency permit starting in January. Great to hear, Living Life. You will love it here. I can't speak well enough about living here in Mexico. Let's see here. Okay, Nemo. I read about the military now also being the police and found it disturbing. How do most Mexicans feel about it? Well, this is what I just went into about the Guardia Nacional. What I'm seeing is it's still keeping its structure. For example, when you see the military on the road, there are certain military units that you'll see with a band around their arm that says Guardia Nacional, and they've been designated in the law enforcement capacity. One of the things that it's not about the military taking over. Now, there are military checkpoints, but now most of them are turning into Guardia Nacional checkpoints, not necessarily just the military. You know, I know that a lot of people get afraid when we start talking about the military having police powers and those types of things, but I think Mexico's in a little bit different situation. You know, I come from a law enforcement background, and I'm the type that's, I come from an attitude in the United States of let the military do their job overseas and let law enforcement do their job here in the United States when I was doing my job. But I think Mexico is a totally different animal. And, you know, it's about resources. It's about reallocating resources. Some of the problems in crime are a little bit more elevated. It's not that they're a little bit more elevated, but they're a little bit more specific as far as cartels and those types of things. And I think in order to combat that, it's a matter of being able to have the equipment, being able to have the capabilities. And that's the thing. The military has those capabilities. And I don't think it's something that is concerning. I do know that a lot of Mexicans will tell you that they don't like it or don't like the changes. I think this president has been a very controversial president. I don't get too involved in politics here. There's a lot of things that I have personally seen that I think are good things for the country. And maybe there's things that I don't think are so good, but you know, we all have our opinions regardless of where we're at. And, you know, whichever country you go to is going to have their issues. And not everybody's going to like the president, no matter what country you're in. So, he's implemented a lot of things, especially in the immigration realm. We've seen a very big modernization in immigration, and a lot of moves that well, might be good, might be bad, but I think we're going to have to see because a lot of these moves are very different. Things have changed here in Mexico and very drastically, and they've changed very, very drastically. So a lot of these changes, we're not going to see what the result is until a little bit further down the road. One of the things that I noticed when I moved to Mexico in particular is that everybody, especially on social media, on YouTube, everybody was, well, I've been living here for 15 years and this is just the way Mexico is. And it's been here this way for the last 15 years and it's never going to change. And that's true. At that point, it was true, but there's been a lot of changes that the president had made. And even with the modernization of immigration, a lot of people didn't realize that immigration had outdated computers. Their computers weren't hooked together. People were filling out forms and scanning passports, and those passports were going nowhere. The forms were going into a box. So those are the things that, the new president has actually changed. He's done it in the name of fighting corruption because of personal accountability. Those people that before used to be able to get away with just not filling out a form or an immigration officer, but now they have to put it in the computer. So now there's a paper trail. So there has been a lot of changes. Jonathan Velez, what's the deal with the CITAS website? It's a mess. I haven't seen it working since December of last year. You know what, Jonathan? I can tell you the web. I think you're referring to there's two websites. The one that to make the appointment at the consulate, and then there's also different one to make appointments at the immigration office. What I've seen is that as far as the immigration office, CITAS, every immigration office is handling it differently. So some places you have to go stand in line and actually get your appointment at the immigration office. As far as the consulates, some are using the appointment website. Other consulates, you have to email them to make an appointment. So it's not consistent in any way whatsoever. I think he said, what's CITAS? It's actually, I believe Jonathan was referring to, there's an actual website that you can go. Actually, there's two. There's one for INM where you can go and make an appointment. And actually, at one point, they wanted to standardize that where you would go make an appointment for your immigration appointment. Instead of standing in line, you would actually make an appointment. Now, also SAT has a CITAS website, which is also, you make an appointment to get your RFSA. So there's three different websites right now to get appointments. One is for getting your RFSA, which is basically the equivalent to your tax ID number. And then there's another one for INM, which most of the INM offices have abandoned and they've gone to their own system of making appointments. Sometimes you stand in line and they take the first 5 and then they give you an appointment. And one of the big things is that I always recommend is using facilitators. And then there's the Mexitel website, which is the website for making appointments, or CITAS, at the consulate for doing your residency. And Wise Owl, I believe that the Guardia Nacional is now under control of the Army. Yes, they are. It's actually the Army. It's not the Marines, not the military in general. Yes, it is the Army that is actually, the command structure is the Army. When I was saying military, I was saying military in general. Most of the time, Yes, you do see the Marines on the road. The Marines are usually consist of a lot of their elite units that are doing other operations. But most of the time on the road, when you see military trucks, that is the Army. One thing I want to point out too is that not only the Guardia Nacional is under the Army, but also the ports of entry, the land border crossings, are now under the direction of the military, no longer under the direction of the local port director. As a matter of fact, when you cross a land border, you'll notice, along with customs, it started out as a program where the military was supposed to oversee customs to make sure they weren't corrupt, and they were supposed to be there in an observatory capacity, and eventually they became part of the port structure. So now when you go through, you'll see customs officers, and you'll actually see military actually helping the customs officers search your car. So yes, but it is the Army. You are correct, Wise Owl. And Nerd Uno said that he used the CITA's website back in February. Like I said, certain I&M offices are still using the CITA's website to do their appointments, and other I&M offices are first come first served basis. Other I&M offices are you have to go, stand in line, and then you get your appointment to come back, and then you stand in a different line the day of your appointment. So it all depends. It has changed everywhere. I think when they first implemented the CITA's the I&M website, they had the idea that they were going to basically make that standard, and they didn't make it standard. Basically, when they started seeing that some I&M offices didn't like the way it worked, or it wasn't working at all, they basically went to a manual system. So it all depends what I&M office you go to. One of the things that I always suggest with people is that you should go through a facilitator. It's the best thing. I did my residency in Monterrey. Excuse me. I did my residency in Monterrey 4 years ago, and we decided to do it ourselves. Needless to say, it wasn't under the new system where you walk out with your card the next day, or 2 weeks later. You would go and you do all your paperwork, and maybe if you were lucky, get your card in 7 months or 8 months. But I had to renew. I did temporary at the beginning, and then I had to renew for another year in order to get my permanent, because I'm married to a Mexican citizen. And one of the things that we found when we went to renew is that it was so easy and convenient to have a facilitator. They filled everything out for us. They stayed in contact with us, and they basically said, show up to sign. And we did the same thing when I got my permanent residency. So if you're having a hard time in getting your appointment, the best thing is to do is get a facilitator. I know it costs money. And I know people have had issues with some facilitators, but do your research, get a facilitator. It's well worth the extra money. So, any more questions? Any questions about, let me see. Okay. Subjects that, as far as, okay. I am considering driving from South Texas to Aguascalientes, crossing a land border. What entry point is the easiest to pass through? It all depends where in South Texas you're at. I live in McAllen, so I pass through Reynosa, which is probably not the best place, but I'm very familiar with it. And I'm very, very familiar with it. And that's right. I am able to cross through there. The best place, and I'll tell you what, is Eagle Pass. Some people will tell you Nuevo Laredo is a really good place to cross. If you cross in Nuevo Laredo, the one thing that I do advise is that you go early in the morning, and also Nuevo Laredo at one of the international bridges offers escorts, police escorts, and utilize those police escorts to get you through Nuevo Laredo. Another option is to the Columbia Bridge, which is north of Laredo. And the road is pretty desolate, but I do know that Nuevo Leon, because Nuevo Leon, even though Nuevo Laredo is part of the state of Tamaulipas, Nuevo Leon owns a little section between Coahuila and Tamaulipas that goes all the way to the Columbia Bridge. And I do know Nuevo Leon has made a couple of deals with Tesla, and that's the route that Tesla takes all of their not their merchandise, but all their parts, all their trucking routes. So Nuevo Leon has made a commitment to secure that area. There's a little portion between on Highway 2 to get to the toll road to Monterrey that is crossing through Tamaulipas. So I really don't like going through Laredo. I don't suggest it, but a lot of people do. And it's really up to you. But like I said, when you cross the border, no matter where you cross the border, even if it's in Eagle Pass, I always say Eagle Pass because it's probably a little bit safer than the other places. But when you do cross the border, it's just a matter of doing it during the day, not traveling, doing it at night, being conscientious. Also, not only that, but just realize that you have that those responsibilities to just practice good safety measures, and you should be fine. And then I got my temporary residency without the use of a facilitator. My Spanish is broken at best, but it wasn't that difficult, to be honest. I did it in Querétaro. Actually, beer lover, like I said, I speak Spanish actually, and we did the process. I think it is a simple process. You go online and you do those things, and you go and you can get away with little Spanish because a lot of the immigration officers do know English. If you want to save that money, I'm all for it. Querétaro is one of the easier offices. Actually, Querétaro, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the offices you can walk out with your card the same day now. Now, I do know Querétaro has had problems. I think late last year where they ran out of plastic to print the cards, so people had to come back. Well, I don't know if they've improved or gotten more plastic so that they can print the cards the next day. But Querétaro was one of the first places where they were printing your residency card. You would go in, do your appointment, get your residency card, you do your fingerprints and everything electronically, and you would walk out with your residency card the same day. So there are some offices that are easier. If you come here to Monterrey, I'm in Monterrey right now. If you come here to Monterrey, trust me, you need a facilitator. So it all depends. And you can do it without a facilitator. And like I said, it just depends how adventurous you want to be. I never discourage someone from not using a facilitator because actually when I did it the first time, it was an adventure and it was a learning experience. And my wife and I were very adventurous. So for us, yes, it was worth the adventure, but for some people it can be a stress. And that's why I always recommend facilitators. It's not necessarily because you can't do it without one. And then my dad, let me see, Michael Turner. My dad is 80 years old, was just diagnosed with first stage dementia. He wants to come with me in January for 180 days. I'm not sure if I should allow him to come with me. Michael, I like I said, not like I said, but it's up to you. if you're going to have to be taking care of your dad and stuff, and if you have concerns coming here to Mexico, I don't know, but like I said, it would be something that would be up to you, and you just have to remember that you're going to have to be taking care of your dad at the same time as being here in Mexico. So, if that's going to be a burden on you, definitely you should think about it. And but it's up to you. Lisa Arias Bess, do you know of any good facilitator in Puerto Vallarta? To be honest with you, the only one that I know of, she has a business or an office in Puerto Vallarta, and I know a lot of people are going to look at me kind of weird, is Sonia Diaz. Her offices are good at what they do. Even though I've done some videos where it seems like I'm picking on her because of something that she just did recently, her offices happen to be very, very efficient. And, I would still recommend them. What happened was with this facilitator has nothing to do with their ability to do their job very well. So really, that's the only facilitator that I know. And now Sonia doesn't work in Puerto Vallarta, but she has people in Puerto Vallarta. Her business has people in Puerto Vallarta. And my understanding is they're very good at what they do. And so let me see here. Colonel, what's with the Agencia de Investigación Criminal? I was stopped by them this past March. They took a drill from me. To be honest with you, I'm not too familiar with them. Were you, were you coming through 40, up 40? Because there are some federal investigative people that are running some checkpoints on 40. And that kind of sounds like what you're talking about. I have no idea why those checkpoints are there. I've been not stopped, but I've had to go through them. And they're both going to Reynosa and coming from Reynosa. And I don't know if that's the ones you're talking about. Nemo, are there any restrictions on what I can bring into Mexico with a temporary residency? Perhaps a list somewhere. Basically, what you can bring in is what you can bring in as a tourist. You have your allowance. When you come in on a land border, you have an allowance of $300 duty free. And when you come in on the air, by air, you have an allowance of $500 duty free. And you can also bring a personal laptop across. But if you have any other like equipment, electronics, those types of things, your allowance is, now if you're traveling with somebody, you can aggregate that allowance. For example, if it's you and your spouse or you and your daughter, son, and you come in, you basically, let's say you come in by air, you have $1,000 allowance. If you come in by land, you have a $600 allowance. So you just want to make sure that you don't want to bring more than your allowance. Now, as far as illegal things, firearms is definitely something you don't want to bring here. Trust me, you will end up almost the rest of your life in jail or prison if you are caught with firearms. And I also want to say, because I worked with Mexico very extensively in this realm, is that it's not just firearms, it's firearms parts. So for example, if you have a magazine or bullets or any kind of defense we called them defense articles back when I was working. If you bring those into Mexico, that's considered, a bullet is almost considered like bringing in a gun. So you really need to be very careful. Those are, and of course, drugs, if you want to bring them into the country. So illegal things, yes, you don't want to bring in. But I think, Dimo, you were asking more towards duty-free and that type of stuff. Uh, Jonathan Velez. I have fallen in love with San Pedro Garza Garcia. My wife's I-130 has finally been approved, and we are just waiting for her appointment. It doesn't get enough spotlight for expats. Yes, San Pedro is a beautiful place. Actually, I'm here in Monterrey right now, and we go there a lot. It's kind of like the Beverly Hills of Mexico, to be honest with you. Um, as a matter of fact, in San Pedro is where I was operated on uh, in Helion Zambrano Hospital, which is there in San Pedro, and there's actually a Porsche dealership there. There's a Lamborghini dealership there. I even took pictures at the Lamborghini dealership to prove, and there's a Bentley dealership there too. So it's a very, very, very nice place. Uh, and there's a lot of very good restaurants there and shopping too. And let's see, living life. I was considering passing through McAllen, Reynosa, but Brownsville, Matamoros definitely have plans to drive during the daytime hours. I have a dog that will be traveling with me. Okay, living life. One of the things that I'll ask, I would not advise Matamoros. If you do come through McAllen, um, there's three ports of entry. Well, there's several points of entry all the way between Brownsville and McAllen. But the one that actually bypasses Reynosa the best is actually Ansalduas. That's the Ansalduas Bridge, which goes through Mission, Texas. That's the one that I take. Now, the only catch to that one and is that when you end up coming in, in order to go towards, you have to get to onto 40, and if you're going, you gotta make sure you take the right exits, because if you take the wrong exits, you can end up in the wrong part of town, and you don't want to end up in the wrong part of town. Also, going through Reynosa is probably the worst part. Once you get past Pemex or more towards the actual Nuevo Leon border, everything should be fine. But you take 40D all the way up to Monterrey or all the way down to Monterrey, and then you keep going. So if you need to go through Reynosa or Brownsville or McAllen, Reynosa, you're going to want to go through Reynosa and not Matamoros. And it also depends on where you're going. But what's really nice about coming down through Laredo, McAllen, or even Eagle Pass, I know even if you want to go up 83 towards Laredo and cross in Laredo or Eagle Pass, it's a couple of hours out of your way, but Laredo happens to be closer to Monterrey than McAllen. So you don't lose that much time going all the way to Laredo. You do lose an hour or two, but it all depends on how safe you feel coming, how comfortable you feel coming through that, through McAllen. But I would take the Ansalduas Bridge. I would not take the Far Bridge or the Hidalgo crossing, because those will force you to go through town, and that's where most bad things happen if they happen. And also, if you're going through Reynosa, there are several Facebook sites there in Spanish, Código Rojo, Reynosa. They'll tell you if there's anything going on. We always check that website before we come across. So in case there is some type of confrontation with the police, with the cartels, or anything else like that, we already know in advance. So we check the news also. El Norte, which is a Mexican newspaper for the northern, or actually from Monterrey. That's a good source of news of what's going on. If there's been increased violence on the border in Reynosa and Brownsville, I do know the State Department does have advisories not to travel through the state of Tamaulipas in general, and it's a pretty valid advisory. I would say it's pretty valid, but like I said, you have to come across the border. It's just a matter of practicing good safety practices, making sure that you don't stop for gas in Reynosa. If you're going to stop for gas, you wait till you're on the toll road. Like I said, come during the day. uh, and you should be fine. As far as a dog, there are some stops on Highway 40. What I would do is stop at major gas stations. There's or the toll booths in the area. If you're coming through 40, which is through McAllen, Reynosa, there are some toll booths that you can stop at, and your little ones can relieve themselves, or you can get them water and that type of stuff. So I would just stop at the toll booths. Don't stop on the side of the road, and you should be fine. And then there's also some major. I think there's halfway between Monterrey and McAllen. There's also a very big like rest stop, which is also safe to stop at. So you should be fine. Okay, Lisa Arias Vez. My husband has a pre-existing health condition with his heart. We are 60. Will it be hard to get health insurance for him? Okay, this is a good question, and I can actually speak from personal experience. My personal situation is that I'm actually insured. I have medical insurance or medical coverage to the United States federal government through my pension plan, and they cover me overseas. Now, here's the catch in covering me overseas. I have to come up with the money out of pocket, and then I get reimbursed. So what my wife and I did was we decided to get a insurance policy, Mexican insurance policy, and that was after I had my cancer. So my U.S. insurance paid for my cancer treatment here, paid for my surgery here. And one of the things that was actually, when they did my insurance policy, is excluded as coverage for cancer. So what'll happen with your husband, if he has a pre-existing health condition with his heart, they usually will go through the physical process or whatever, or have you do blood work or have the health questionnaire of if you have pre-existing condition. So what the insurance will do is they'll say, okay, since you have a pre-existing condition for your heart, we can't cover you for heart conditions. Or they may, depending on insurances, you'd probably have to shop around, but they may say your deductible is going to be higher. Now, as far as IMSS, which is the public healthcare system, yes, you can pay into IMSS, but if you have any of those pre-existing conditions, that will disqualify you from insurance, IMSS insurance, period. In other words, and even a condition such as high cholesterol is going to disqualify you from IMSS. So that's one of the important things to remember, because a lot of people think, oh, for $600 a year, I can get IMSS and go to the public healthcare. But any pre-existing condition, also with IMSS, if you have to get any kind of surgery or anything else, there's waiting periods and everything else. So unfortunately, with a pre-existing health condition, your husband may have problems getting insurance. Now, I have been approached by an insurance agent that sells international expat insurance, health insurance. So that may be an option, but I haven't actually looked into it yet. And I'm actually going to have him, as soon as I get a chance, I'm going to actually interview him on one of my expat interview shows. So that might be something to look out for. And that may be an option, because there are several expat health insurance policies that are not necessarily Mexican insurance. But if you want to get a Mexican insurance policy, pre-existing conditions normally will not be covered. So what I do myself is I have a Mexican policy. For example, if I get in a car accident, I don't have the credit card to give the hospital to pay. I'm incapacitated. I have my Mexican insurance that'll cover it. But I normally use my U.S. insurance for mostly everything and then just get reimbursed, because they actually cover me a little bit better. My deductibles are a little bit higher with the Mexican insurance because I usually use it just for emergencies. But it also on the pre-existing health condition with his heart, it also depends on how serious it is. If it's just a matter of I have bad cholesterol, it's not bad. But if it's like I've had heart surgery before. They're going to say, well, we're not going to cover heart surgery. So it just depends on what type of pre-existing condition it is. Oh, Nerd Uno. I hide my electronics below a bunch of grocery bags and they see that it's all food and they wave you through. Actually, one of the things that I want to note about this, and just a warning, um, first of all, when you come through a land border, because I'm almost sure Nerd Uno is talking about this, they also have this at some of the airports. They have this system with a green light, red light. So when you drive up, they give you a green light or a red light. And if you have a green light, that means you just keep on going. And then if you have a red light, that means you have to stop for inspection. The one thing that I want to note is that we were discussing that the military kind of took over the ports. Before, hiding all your electronics under a bunch of grocery bags was a really good technique. But one of the warnings that I have is now that the military is assisting customs, it's no longer the customs officer that's inspecting you. It's also military personnel. The couple of times that I've gotten, and it's not consistent, a couple of times that I've gotten the red light, they've actually opened my glove box, probably looking for firearms or those types of things. But they're getting a lot more thorough on the inspections. Just a note. I mean, now we've gotten more green lights than we've gotten red lights, if that's any consolation. But one of the things that you need to be also, another piece of advice, if you hide your electronics below a bunch of grocery bags, if for some reason they find those electronics, the first thing you want to say is, I want to declare them. Don't just say, don't act clueless. Just say, I forgot. I want to declare a bunch of electronics. You're going to have to pay the duties. But here's the thing. If you don't declare them, for example, at the Ansel Duas Bridge, they used to have two lines for declaration. And there was another line for if you had things to declare. And another line for you if you had things that you didn't have anything to declare. Yeah, well, if you went to the do not declare line and then they found something, then they would fine you because you didn't declare it. And if you went through the declare line, that's where you would declare your stuff. Now in Ansel Duas, they don't have a declare line or do not declare line. So when you go through, it's either green light or red light. And if you get a green light, well, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but you keep on going. But if you really want to declare your stuff and pay your taxes, you stop. You don't keep going in the green light. You say, hey, I have stuff to declare. And that's if you go over your amounts that I'm talking about. One of the unique situations that I have is I'm going to be traveling back to Texas, not to Texas, but to New Mexico a couple of times a year, which I have been doing, but I haven't been traveling back with a lot of electronic equipment. I had stuff over there and I have stuff now. Now with a YouTube channel, I have to take a bunch of equipment, a couple of $1,000s worth of equipment. So I actually have gotten with customs and asked them how to do it. And I'm actually going to do a video for people that may need to take out, like, for example, you have a certain career where you need to take out, these items were in Mexico before. And then when you come back in, you get the red light and all of a sudden you have $3,000 worth of equipment they want to charge you. So I'm going to do a video on that. I'm actually working on that right now. And I'm actually going to walk everybody through the process on how you do that. But there is a way of declaring your stuff going out so that when you bring it back in, you don't have to pay duties. And living life. Thanks for that information. Well, thank you for joining us on our live stream. I appreciate it a whole bunch. Let's see here. Kona Shepherd, how far in advance can you book an appointment with INM? I'm not sure, Kona. Excuse me, I had to, like I said, if for those of you just joining me because of my cancer, I have to keep water close because I don't produce saliva like I used to. One of the things, I don't know if you're asking how far in advance are you like actually still in a foreign country and you're doing the residency process and you want to make your appointment before you actually come, or when you get here. What you do, the process of actually going to INM to book an appointment, usually you come in, here's the way it works. You go to a consulate outside your country. You apply for permanent or temporary residency. Once you apply, they give you a visa. It's a foil visa that's inside your passport. And then you have 100, I believe it's 180 days to come in. And then as long as you come in within 180 days, then when you get to the border, when you get to the border, what you do is you actually present that foil visa. And they're going to issue an FMM, what you were talking about. Now, at these 4 airports, it's going to be a little bit different, but in most airports and most land borders are still using the paper, and they're going to actually fill out your FMM and they're going to mark it canje, C-A-N-J-E. Once you get that canje, and you have to stop at the port, a lot of people that are going through the land borders forget. This is one of the things, because nobody at immigration stops you. Nobody tells you, hey, you need to go over there. You need to find the immigration place, because what will end up happening is even though you have a foil visa, unless you have that FMM, immigration won't take you. So you need to stop at the border. If you're crossing through a land border, find the immigration office. It's usually when you're entering somewhere. You can even ask the customs officials or the military, Inmigración, ¿dónde está migración? And then you get your FMM, they mark it canje, and with that FMM is what you come to the INM office. So normally you don't make your appointment until you actually get here. Now, what happens is you have 30 days to report to INM. What you'll notice in a lot of the Facebook groups is they'll say, appointments are booked until December, or some offices are actually booked until December. You can't even get in until December. But what they'll do, some offices, is as long as you come in before the 30 days and book your appointment, first they'll say, okay, you're good to go. You're good. Your 30 days stops. I mean, you don't have to worry. Or other offices, if they know that you need to do it in 30 days, then they'll make an appointment within the 30 days. But most of them, what they're doing is saying, as long as you report to the office and make the appointment before the 30 days is over, you don't have to worry about it. You come to your appointment, even though it's 2 months later. And that's how you that's how you book your appointment. And that's how you forego the 30 days, even though it took you 2 or 3 months. So hope that helps. I'm not sure if you were trying to ask about making an appointment with INM once you get here, but it usually happens once you get here that you have to make that appointment. You can't it's kind of a situation where you can't schedule an appointment before. Now, I do know at one point you could do it on the CITA's website. You could go into the CITA's website and you knew you were going to come in a month. But like I said, a lot of immigration offices aren't doing the CITA's website anymore. It just all depends. And Beer Lover 666, this is a very common question. Is it difficult to get a legal firearm for home protection in Mexico? I heard something about there being a process for it. Yes, there is a process, and it's very, very difficult. There's only one gun store here in all of Mexico, and it happens to be in Mexico City. The Sedena is the one that actually handles the licensing process. It's almost, and not only that, it's only certain caliber of firearms. The firearm has to be purchased from this one gun store in Mexico. And so it's very, very, very hard. Now, you can, as a resident, like a permanent resident or temporary resident, you technically can own a firearm legally for home defense, but you have to go through the whole licensing process. And from what I've heard, the licensing process is almost so impossible that it's not even worth trying. I will tell you that when I worked here in Mexico, our people here in Mexico, even on a law enforcement, even though I was in Brazil, we had permits to carry firearms since we were law enforcement and diplomatic. Here in Mexico, until one of our agents was actually killed, we weren't even allowed to carry firearms here. Most of South America, we were able to carry firearms with special permission, diplomatic permission. Here in Mexico, they're very, 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 very strict about firearms. One of the best videos to watch, Kuru Paul, with 2 expats in Mexico, actually has a video called "Is It Legal to Own Firearms Here in Mexico?" I actually use that video a lot. He gives a very good explanation of the laws, how you even go about doing it, and how difficult it is to get. I hope that answers your question. And Nerd Uno says, hey, that's going to be a good video on taking electronics out of Mexico. Once I took so much electronics to the U.S. beyond Salduos International Bridge, they made me go through the X-ray machine. Actually, I am going to do a video because I know this is a unique situation, but I thought, you know what? There are going to be a lot of people that travel back and forth. And with the large influx of foreigners that are moving here, there's a lot of foreigners that just move here for 6 months out of the year. And they want to bring their 4 computers or 3, or 4 laptops and iPads and everything else, and don't want to have the hassle of having to pay duty for something that you had in Mexico before. Now, on a customs law perspective, and I'll tell you the way it works in the United States and Mexico or anywhere else, from a customs perspective, if you have an electronics item here in the United States, here in Mexico, and you exit Mexico with that piece of electronics, you technically had possession of it here in Mexico. So when you bring it back in, technically you don't owe duties because you're not importing it. Actually, Mexico does this with a lot of the vehicles. If you come here to Mexico, there's certain companies such as Jeep, Kia, Nissan, Chevrolet, they actually have plants here in Mexico. And usually they produce more than 75% of the vehicle. They actually produce up to 75% of the vehicle here and then export it to the United States, for example, to assemble the rest of it. And then they take that same Jeep Cherokee and they re-import it back into Mexico to sell it here. And those Jeeps actually are very comparable to the price that they are in the United States. But the reason why, for example, if you buy a BMW here in Mexico, it's double the price. The reason why it's double the price, or a laptop, for example, is double the price. The reason why it's double the price is because of the duties. So the actual not manufacturer, but the company is passing on those import duties onto you. So when you export something and it's 75, I think it's 75%. And then also the free trade agreement. Also, there's a lot of things that are able to come into Mexico. But this is part of it, is the reason why you're getting the Jeep for about the same price as you get in the United States, probably a little bit more expensive, is because some of these items were actually exported from Mexico and brought back. As a matter of fact, we're just about to buy a Samsung refrigerator. I went into I thought we were going to pay twice the price. And when I went into the Best Buy website, it's the same price here in Mexico as it is in the United States. So it's probably because Samsung has a factory here or it's through the free trade agreement. There's a lot of companies that have manufacturing plants here. So when you're taking electronics out, and I technically going to bring them back in, but you have to let customs know. And that's what I'm going to do the video on. Okay. A large dog is easy to get and much better at deterring an ordinary robber. Yeah, actually, you know what? A lot of people here in Mexico do own dogs for that reason. Um, and actually, you'll see um, a lot of individuals have German shepherds and stuff like that that aren't even inside dogs. They're outside in the yard most of the day and use them for security. So very interesting. Amir also points out, and this is something that I wanted that I also pointed out, is that there's caliber limitations, and also it's only pretty much a revolver. It's anything below a 38 caliber, and you can't own 9mm Glocks and those types of things. And Nerdono also points out that Sedena has a list, but it's usually under a 38 caliber. 380 auto is pretty much under a 38 caliber. Beer lover was thinking of a 9mm pistol, good all arounder. Actually, that's not going to happen. Now I do know that there's some gun clubs here that, but the thing is, it has to stay in the custody of the gun club. It's not you can't get a license for owning a firearm here in Mexico. They're very strict, and actually the penalties for possessing one are very, very strict. I mean, we're talking about decades in jail. There's been several incidents. There was an incident of a soldier that had an AR-15 that got stuck in the wrong lane and ended up in Mexico. There's been some diplomatic incidents. They're very strict about it. Well, define electronics. I have a 12-volt fridge, a solar battery pack, and a halo camera light. Yet, well, here's the thing on a lot of those things. Personal electronics, such as a 12-volt, you may end up having to pay some duties on it. Now, here's the thing that's kind of in a gray area when it comes to declaring electronics. Most of the electronics they're looking for is high value stuff. Like, for example, I have shown exactly what I'm carrying is probably what they target more than anything else. When you're coming across and you have a refrigerator and you're traveling, they're going to look at that as you're personally using that. There's certain things that they're not just going to go rummage through your stuff and say, okay, but I have things like a Stream Deck, or I have a mixer that's here. I have a microphone right here. Those are the things that they're going to look at because those are the high value electronic items. Computers are also a very tricky thing because they actually customs allows you to bring in a personal computer, Mexican customs. Now, most people will say, okay, well, I have two laptops and they're both my personal computer, but only one is allowed. One is allowed. And so you have to be careful with little things like that. I do know another YouTuber said that, and I don't know where he heard this, but, and actually he happens to come from one of the biggest YouTube channels. He was also advising don't go over your maximum amount. And what he did was he went to the United States to go buy a new laptop. And he was under the understanding that I pay the duties on my old laptop, but my new laptop I can bring in because I can bring in one laptop. And they ended up charging him duties on his new laptop instead of his old laptop. And so he said to be very careful. And actually, he declared it. He actually brought the laptop in, but he had the misunderstanding that he was only going to have to pay duties on his old laptop, which was only worth $500, and maybe the new one was worth double. But normally, customs, if you bring in a new laptop and an old laptop, they're going to charge you for the new laptop because the new laptop is the one they're going to collect more duties on. And one of the things to note too is that SAT has become SAT, which also runs customs, and they're the revenue collection agency for Mexico. They don't run customs actually now. the military does, but they are the revenue collectors. They're the ones you pay the duties to. They have gotten a lot more strict. As a matter of fact, you've probably heard that you have to get a tax ID number now to do any kind of business. SAT is really cracking down on revenue collection right now. So, like I said, and your solar battery pack, you don't have to worry about. That's not necessarily an electronic item. So, like I said, if you get the green light, you're not going to have any problems. I do know, I had a friend of mine that he brought in a mixer. He also does a podcast, and he got a hold of me and says, I said, how much is the mixer worth? I said, $800. I said, get a receipt. And he goes, yeah, I just bought it. And I said, get a receipt with the proof of how much it's cost. And it's you and your wife traveling. And I said, the minute they run it through the x-ray machine or the minute they see it in a hard case, they're going to know that it's electronics, and they're going to stop you. You're going to get the red light. Trust me. And sure enough, they got the red light, and all he did was show the receipt. It was under $1,000, and he was able to go through. So those are the things that customs looks for, not necessarily your refrigerator. And they look more for computers, iPads. Now, for your phone, they're not going to, that's your personally used phone. I mean, that's what you carry every day. If you had 10 phones, yes, you're going to have an issue. So, standing mannequin. Are there places with lockers near the border where you can keep your weapons before crossing the border? I'm not aware of any. I will tell you what I personally do, because I happen to be a retired federal law enforcement officer and I have the right to carry a firearm through the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act. I have a safety deposit box, and when I travel in the United States, I pick up my firearm from my safety deposit box at the bank. Of course, the firearm stays unloaded. You don't want to, and everything unloaded and in the safety deposit box. And that's how I do it. If I come into the United States, because we travel through McAllen, which is a strategic place, I have a safety deposit box where I go pick up my firearm, and then we keep going to New Mexico. But I don't know of any other place. I don't know of any place that will store your firearms. I'm not aware of, to be honest with you. Melanie J., I will be traveling by air. I have a laptop and an old iPad. Is this allowed? Yes, you should be fine. Your iPad, it all depends, because you could say the iPad's a computer, but it's a mobile device. It's just like your phone. So you should be fine. And especially that it's an old iPad, they're not going to give you a very hard time. And you should be fine. Let's see here. And I'm going to be wrapping this up now. We've been on for almost an hour now, so I'm going to be wrapping this up. But what I do want to let everybody know is that I'm going to keep doing these live streams. Right now, I have them set down for once a month, but maybe even once a week if I can start getting into a little bit more of a rhythm of it. You know, I have a lot of things going on right now. I'm building a house in Monterrey, Mexico, which I'm going to be doing a video on, and I've got a lot of videos planned. Another thing that I do have planned is that I'm going to start doing shorts. One of the things that YouTube has is something somewhat like TikTok, where you do this 60-second video or so. What it's going to be called Learn About Mexico in Less Than 60 Seconds. So what I'm going to try to do is these shorts, and I'm going to try to put out as many as I can, as often as I can, is little things like, how do I pay my electric bill? And I'm going to try to explain it in less than 60 seconds. What are the financial requirements for residency? Let me see if I can explain it in less than 60 seconds. It won't be detailed videos, but it'll be something that, you know, you can refer, or I'll refer to the full length video. But hopefully we can do this more often. I really am enjoying doing this. I hadn't done it yet. Maybe I can extend it to Facebook because I can also stream to multiple platforms. So let's see how it goes. I want to thank everybody for supporting me. I never really ever thought that I'd have 7,000 subscribers by now, almost 7,000 actually. I haven't hit 7,000. And actually, I have an announcement to make. We're only about 20 subscribers away, but I have this retired life. I don't know if we can, let me see if I can get into the retired life in Mexico, no bull, water bottle, laser etched, and I will be giving that away when I hit 7,000 subscribers. I haven't done any subscriber giveaways lately, but now I'm going to do it. Now that I can, now that I want getting back into the swing of things because I got a little bit busy with the building of the house and some other issues. But now that I have a little bit more time and hopefully I can get to it, we're going to do a giveaway. We're going to go back to doing another giveaway. And the next giveaway for hitting 7,000 is going to be this water bottle. So be on the lookout. And thank you guys for joining me. And we'll see you. And like I always say, till next time, see you soon.